Welcome to the Bend Don't Break podcast. We are powered by The Source Weekly, Bend's locally owned newspaper. This podcast is our eddy in the rushing waters of local journalism. We are glad that you're taking some of your time to listen to us chat with the people who shape our local community.
Thank you to our presenting sponsor, RE/MAX Key Properties, a family-owned full-service real estate brokerage specializing in residential, luxury, commercial, new construction, and ranch and land properties. Their new state-of-the-art facility at 42 Greenwood Avenue is a modern, collaborative space and the new home of the Bend Don't Break podcast recording studio.
I am Aaron Schweitzer, host of this podcast and publisher of The Source Weekly. Today we have with us Kisky
Holwerda, yeah.
Holwerda, did I get that? Okay.
Yeah,
She's co-founder of the Ponderosa Players alongside her partner, Gray Conant. Kisky received her BA in drama from Kenyon College and studied theater at programs including the Stella Adler Studio, the British American Drama Academy, and Interlochen Center for the Arts. As an actor, Kisky has performed in Portland, New York City, and Bend. Highlights on the local stage include Spamalot, Something Rotten, the complete works of William Shakespeare, Abridged, Revised Again, Player, and Sweeney Todd as Miss Lovett. In addition to her work with Ponderosa Players, Kisky has worked as a choreographer for Summer at High School, Beat, Theater in the Park, TMP, and as a director for the Greenhouse Cabaret, among others. Kisky, thanks for being here.
Oh yeah,
You've hit all the local performing companies.
Yeah, I like to spread the love.
That's good. That's good. They don't always get along, so you've been able to go all the way through them and back and establishing good relationships. Great. Before we go any further, I do have to thank Crux. They are sponsoring this podcast today. Mountain Views and Local Brews. So, Kisky, so I got to say, I know about Ponderosa Players through my niece. Mm-hmm. I've seen several of the performances, but that's not why I wanted to have you on here today, because I was struck in all those performances by how creative those performances actually are. I'm super impressed because, I mean, people do children's theater and young people's theater, and they roll out a lot of times Disney classics and, scripts that are just easily accessible, sell a lot of tickets and stuff. And you've cut a different road. Tuck Everlasting, although that's a well-known play. I mean, I saw that in a barn.
Yep.
It was in the round. I was like, how are they pulling this off as a producer for Theater in the Park? I know the challenges of staging these kind of things and what goes into, especially ones where weather can be an element, and the barn certainly qualified for that. But where do you get your inspiration? Why start producing and directing these things?
Honestly, I was so influenced by my experiences in youth theater. And it shaped who I was as an adult, not just as when I was performing and my path when I was working as an actor, but as like just a human being and how I view the world and how I interact with people. And so I wanted to provide an environment that challenged and supported young artists.
Yeah.
And Gray had, the same vision and the same dream. And so we decided to take the jump, and we both thought, okay, well, there are other youth theater companies in town. What are we doing that's different? What would we add if we're going to join the noise?
Right.
What are we providing? And so we wanted to do something that was a little different. That was, we offer classes, but for our productions, we wanted to do full-length musicals, or we're going to do our first play next year, and give the kids a sort of almost pre-professional kind of jumping off point, to give them that experience and to say, like, this is all the ways art can take place. It can be in a barn. It can be in the round. Just because you haven't seen it that way or haven't experienced it that way yet, like, we want to help break the boundaries of their imagination and what they think is possible as like a teenager.
Right.
So many of them come to us and they're like, what do you mean you want me to look directly at the audience or sit in the audience? I don't know if I can do that. And it's like, you can.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the inspiration for how we stage things came from, is wanting to give the kids the confidence to explore as artists, I guess.
Yeah. It's awesome. Yeah, I was a lit major in college, and so very close to theater. Of course, took a lot of classes around classic plays, Shakespeare, etc. And so it's always been a part of my life. It's so I've seen people do all sorts of things with performances, and my son was both of my boys were part of local theater groups as children and came up to it, and I can tell you it's a mixed bag. People do not appreciate how incredibly difficult it is, I think, to manage. They're you can't really call them actors. They're mostly extroverted children running around, and some of them are actors. I mean, but years are a little older. But when you're talking about some of these troupes, and some people have those skills, and some people just do not, and you get kind of a Lord of the Flies mentality in some performances, and and that, I think, is what's so amazing, is you can tell in your troupe the kids are genuinely happy, and they're treating everybody with respect, and yeah, not always the case. So how do you mean, I know you're speaking from some of your own experiences and trying to get in here, but you've certainly had that mixed bag.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I know my mom could talk about her experiences with me in children's theater. It's true. It's like yeah. You can have some really positive experiences. You can have some not so positive experiences. Not only because, like, the students, the kids are all at varying ages, all at varying kind of developmental stages, the hormones raging, but just like
Different abilities.
and all that kind of stuff. And so we looked at that and we said, okay, what we want to do is provide a space, obviously, for them to grow as actors. And then we implemented these values to try to create a more of a community-based environment for them. So we get that feedback from parents, from students, that it's just a really positive, uplifting environment. And that's what we really pride ourselves on. Like, in addition to creating some really awesome productions, we say, all right, we know you all have a lot going on in your lives, and our emotions are high, and we're all at different places, but how can we support each other?
Yeah.
Because I think that was missing in a lot of my experiences. And when I think back to my children's theater experiences that were positive, they were where I felt like I was part of an ensemble that was building something. And the adults were supportive, and the other kids were supportive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a lot like teachers in schools, I think. But if I look back to the really positive experiences my own kids had in children's theater, I can point to individuals who were in charge of those performances and who manage the other actors. And because you are giving, I think it's one of the first instances where you're told you are going to get this role, and it's always, many people wanted that role, and this individual got it, which means there's several people who did not get it. And, it's something that a lot of people think of when they think of sports. And I think there are very clear lines in sports. Sports, you understand, it's like you were either good or you weren't good. Whereas theater, it's far more emotional. They want to know why. And you're talking about an art form. So it's very difficult for kids to process that.
It's true. It's so subjective. And we try to, as much as we can at all of our auditions, talk to them. It's, if you're not cast in the role you want or in this show at all, it is not because you aren't talented or have a special sparkle or so amazing. It could just be that this other kid, for whatever reason, maybe it's their height next to the person they're playing next to. And it's so subjective. And, I've obviously had that in my own experiences, not getting cast in shows, getting cast in shows. And it's hard to manage that disappointment.
Yeah.
And some of it is part of what comes with being in theater, which is just tough. Cause it's like, how do you tell a kid, like, you're going to have to get a little bit of heartbreak, but it's going to be worth it. You maybe aren't the lead in this show, but you get to be a part of it. And
Right.
your part is just as important, if not more important than all the others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm not picking up on this appropriately, but it seems like also in your performances, you do a lot with makeup, like I was looking at thinking about Tuck and thinking about your latest performance. What was
Ride the Cyclone.
Oh yeah. Ride the Cyclone. And in there, you almost have, they're two of the characters, or one character in each one, is completely made up.
Yeah.
It's like it jumps off the page. Like I saw it in the advertising stuff, and you don't see that in other performances. I mean, you might see, I don't know, some, but not to this extent. Am I correct in that? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to toot our own horn, it's part of this wanting to give the kids a pre-professional experience, a jumping off point of saying, if you're in our show, this is what you're getting. You're getting a professional costumer. You're getting a professional wig stylist. If that's, what we're doing with your hair, you're having a makeup artist come in.
Okay.
You're getting your cast sweatshirt. You're getting a promotional photo shoot. It's all part of what we offer to these kids, is the whole shebang.
Well, it's good for the audience too, because, a lot of times you're coming to a children's performance, you don't know what to expect. You don't know whether you're doing the token, I'm here, or whether it's like, wow, this is cool. And I can say that definitely when you get there and you see the extent to which you've just dove into the costuming and the makeup is enough and pretty impressive. How did, tell us a little bit about your own story. Like, how did you initially were you always a theatrical child? Did your mom have to hold you back from the profession?
My parents were so supportive, which is very wonderful of them. I grew up, doing theater. I was in children's theater and community theater and stuff in the Portland area. I went to college for it. I just always loved it. My background is really in Shakespeare more so than musicals.
Okay. Yeah, we used to do Shakespeare in the park. It didn't used to be theater; it used to be Shakespeare, and it really frustrated me because we had declining attendance over each year as it went on, and of course we were getting closer and closer to the history plays, which I was like, it's gonna come.
It's bad.
It's gonna come. And as soon as we turned the switch on musicals, the attendance numbers skyrocketed. And I love the musicals, but they can't, in my own opinion, cannot hold a candle to Shakespearean drama. And but we are an entertainment company, so musicals must go on.
That's why we started with musicals too.
Right.
I was not a singer. I was always a dancer. But so always in the performing arts. Went to college, got my degree, moved to New York. Tried the acting path for a while. Was in some productions over there.
What was your biggest challenge?
Honestly, it was connections.
Yeah.
And that's what when I have kids or parents ask me for advice. And I'm like, I did a BA program, not a BFA program. I had a fantastic college experience. I learned a lot. It set me up to be a fully well-rounded adult. It did not set me up to be an actor. So I went and got my drama degree, but I was missing a lot of those connections and
that you would have made through the school.
Yeah, that would have told me like what to do. I just moved to New York.
Right.
I was like, oh yeah, I'm on Actors Access and backstage. What do I do now?
Right.
So I was missing a lot of those pieces that I think if you go to a more tailored fine arts program, you would receive. So I ended up then working for a nonprofit called Symphony Space as a producer. And I booked author events, I booked actors, I booked comedians.
How old were you at the time?
26, because I think I got that job so I could have health insurance.
Right.
But yeah, I was 26 and I was producing events in New York. And then
that's pretty quick.
Yeah, I was good at it.
Yeah, that's pretty quick too.
It was, but yeah, and then I ended up moving to Berkeley when I was 28, I think. Yeah, to be the director of literary programs at a book festival.
Oh, okay.
And so I went over there, did that. COVID hit, and I was like, what would make me happiest? I miss acting. And I came and moved to Bend. And And it's like a typical story, like the pandemic happened and I rearranged what was important to me. Yeah, but came here and got back into community theater. And I was
That's
like, oh,
great.
it all just like clicked.
Yeah. Well, I'm like a broken record because I talk about the pandemic all the time on this podcast, but there's so many creative, compelling individuals we've had on this podcast who have that story.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then it really did transform Bend and bring a lot of the cool things. So in some ways, the reordering was a good thing.
Yeah. I mean, I adore Bend.
Stressful.
Yeah.
But it was
stressful. Not fun.
Not a fun way to be transformed, shoved into the cocoon.
Yeah, and like, and now your entire career is going to be on a computer screen.
Right.
But yeah, like now you couldn't get me, you couldn't pay me to leave Bend.
Right.
Like, this is just amazing. I'm just so happy. Yeah.
That's great. What is so for Ponderosa Players? Maybe talk a little bit more about Ponderosa Players. Like, I know why you got into it, but what's coming up next, and what do you hope for it?
Yeah, we're hoping to just keep growing. We've had we've only been around since 2023, and just have grown. I think what we're offering is really special, and really unique. And I think people are seeing that. So we just auditioned Guys and Dolls, which will be back at the barn, back at the hay shed.
I recommend it. I mean, it's in the round, and the actors and actresses coming in from both sides, and the fact that they're performing right at your knee, and it's crazy.
Thanks.
I thought it was cool.
So we're doing that, and then we have our summer intensives that we just get raves about from students. We have two create and perform. One is Shakespeare for the high schoolers. They all know how much I love Shakespeare and that they will be subjected to it.
What are you gonna do?
We do. I cut down a Shakespeare play every summer. This year it's going to be As You Like It.
Okay.
And I cut it down to like a half an hour, 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's about all people can take.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately.
I know. And then I cast it. We have, our max capacity is about 15 students. So I break it down. And so normally we have a kid who's playing 3 different roles because you cut it down.
Yeah.
Right? It's just wild. And we have a prop table of, a bunch of different hats and boas and whatever. Yeah. And they do like a madcap edition of the play. And it's just a blast. And we're doing it that same format with Charlotte's Web for the littles. Our littles are 11 and 14. I know they're not everyone's littles.
Right.
And then we do a musical theater review at the Tower.
Oh, okay.
And then next season we're growing. We're adding an additional play for 11 to 14-year-olds. We're doing The Little Prince and then 2 musicals.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's a lot. You're going to roll one right into the other.
Yeah, we looked at our calendar and it was a little scary. Yeah, we're going straight.
It looked like a full-time job.
Yeah, it did. It is.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, so it's really fun. And we it's just a blast, and we're seeing kids coming back and staying with us and seeing them grow, and it's really rewarding. And, yeah.
Well, you've kind of built up a troupe, haven't you? I mean, a lot of those kids, I know it's it'll change and you'll get more people in, but you've got a couple of youngins who are pretty committed to the program, and they're very talented, and that's got to be fun too.
It is. It's fun. It's
because you're working with the same, instead of them just, it's not a revolving door. I mean, you're being able to see them develop under your mentorship. And
And we tell them it's important to go work. If this is what you want to do, it's important to get other perspectives. And it's why we have our visiting artist program where we bring in professionals for our main stage shows to work with the kids. But there's something that's really worthwhile about saying, like, okay, I had this kid in intro to acting, and now they're in our main stage shows, and now they're taking another class with us, and you really get to help them grow as an actor and as a person. Yeah.
What for yourself personally? I mean, you've got a lot going on with Ponderosa Players. Are you going to do any performances yourself? Are you keeping your toe in the water there?
Yeah, last year was a lot with I did 2 shows at the Greenhouse Cabaret, which is an amazing space, and I feel so lucky to have been a part of them. But it was rough. It was a lot.
Yeah.
So Gray and I are both taking a bit of a step back from performing. I will be choreographing again for TMP in the upcoming
Okay.
season, but staying off the stage for a
Yeah.
little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Lord knows you're busy enough, I would think.
And it's fun. And it's fun for the kids to see us. Like, if we're telling them how to act,
Yeah.
it's probably kind of important that they see that we know what we're talking about.
Sure.
Because I can be like, yeah, I went to college and I went to all these programs and blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah. And they're like, yeah, whatever, Kisky. Stop telling us to walk around like animals. And so there's definitely something helpful about being on stage as a teacher. But
Well, we had a bunch of the Maddie's friends, a bunch of the people from Tuck Everlasting. They all got tickets to come to Theater in the Park. So they were all fired up to see like, oh, it's in the park. The stage is elevated. It was cute to see. And they were all in a group and pretty awesome development for them.
it was fun. I know I went because I was like choreographed. I was going backstage and they all rushed me in a big group.
Yeah, that is just
Very
great.
sweet. Yeah.
So for Ponderosa Players, what do you see in your future? I mean, I know you've got a lot going on now, but how does your troupe grow? What does growth look like for a children's performance company?
Growth looks like, and honestly, like there are two answers. One is that it looks like more community support. Like we grow by bringing on more sponsors and getting people kind of on our train, and saying like, this is worthwhile for the kids. This is an amazing experience. And by getting more community support, we can grow the number of shows we offer, the number of opportunities, the types of opportunities we offer. Right now we're pretty limited, just in space.
Right.
So it looks like that, but then it also looks like expanding our classes. We're looking at adding some additional intro classes, some acting 1 classes for that middle school age, and maybe going a little younger to get kind of like the 7 to 10-year-olds in to kind of start getting them on the train, on the Ponderosa train, and getting our own space. That would be like kind of where we need, in order to continue growing, we need to have like a physical space that we can fit more kids in for more classes, that we can have more performances for audiences.
Well, this would be a good spot to stick in our never-ending pitch for more performance art space, larger performance art space. I mean, from your experience, you can say like Bend is pretty impoverished on the performing arts space. There's just a lot, and over the past couple post-pandemic, I would say there are more creatives here than there were before and doing things like what you're doing, and there's more of a need, so they're all sharing the same spaces. And the spaces are really small. They're just old Bend size spaces where the demand is really high. I mean, one of the things I love about Theater in the Park is that as interest has grown, we just add chairs. So we're not scrambling around looking for a larger venue. I'm like, this venue's plenty big. We'll just put more chairs in for folks. And but when we were looking during the pandemic at doing performances in non-traditional spaces, but they're so small you barely can provide enough revenue coming in from those small spaces that make it worth the performance. You have to have bigger space. I think that's what people don't understand is like small theater it's cool, but it's very hard to make that a sustainable thing if you're not moving into a space that's appropriate for your size. And for the size now, it's, you could use 2 to 3 more towers.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's so true. Like you said it, like you're spending, we're renting our performance space for the full week. We're bringing in a giant set and all this lighting equipment and all the sound equipment and costumes and props and 15 children. And, so we can't move that. So if we're going to extend our run, we need to rent it for another week. But with the seating that is available, you're pretty much breaking even if you're selling out. You're covering your rental costs with your ticket sales. So then it doesn't really make sense to extend it because you're at best you're breaking even. At worst, you're losing money.
Yeah, you're going to rent it again.
Yes.
You know?
Because you have to rent it for the full week. So even
Right.
though no one's in there, but you can't move your set because you just screwed it into the ground.
Right. Right.
And so it's...
Oh, it's
yeah,
a
it's
challenge.
tough.
It's people constantly are saying to us, "Oh, you've got to do another night. You've got to you got to do this next weekend. You got to take it to Redmond. You got to go to Sisters." I'm like, how would
Yes.
that happen? Like, you want me to just origami this set into a
Right?
little box,
Yep.
put it in the back of the truck, and drive it, 30
And we'll
miles.
just go over here and
Right.
we'll just pop it up here,
Right.
even though the measurements would be
Right.
completely different.
And all the actors are free. They're all down to like wait another week to perform. And
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
I do wholeheartedly endorse all of the efforts that are going on to bring larger performance spaces here. And sometimes people question me about it. I'm like, look, it just seems like such a glaring omission from what Bend has here. You know,
Yeah, we have so many amazing theater groups and theater companies, and we're all competing, I mean, for lack of a better term, for the same spaces.
Right.
And it's hard, to be like, well, we want to have a show at this time because it fits with our schedules. You also want to have a show at this time. And then, we're all kind of pulling from the same pool of audience members.
Yeah.
So it's just kind of a bummer.
yeah,
We need more space.
yes, I support that.
Yeah.
Kisky, we're at the end of our time for this podcast. What would you like people to know about Ponderosa Players? How can they find out more about the theater group?
Oh, visit our website, ponderosaplayers.com. We have year-round classes for students 11 to 18. We are launching some younger classes soon. So if you have a 7-year-old that's been wanting to get into drama, give us an email. And yeah, Guys and Dolls will be going up at the end of June at the Hay Shed, and it is going to be amazing. So
Fun.
come check us out.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
This has been the Bend Don't Break podcast. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, you can go to our website, bensource.com, and become a member and let us keep doing more cool things like this and talking to more cool people like Kisky. Thank you. You've been listening to the Bend Don't Break podcast, powered by The Source Weekly. To read, hear, and see more of what we do, go to bensource.com.